Today, we're exploring the absolute extremes of car culture to figure out what truly drives us, you know? We're going to bounce between two totally different universes today. One is all high-tech boardrooms and literally billions of dollars, and the other, damp parking lots and pocket change. But as you'll see, the pulse behind both of them is surprisingly identical.
So I want to hook you right off the bat with a question that might sound completely ridiculous at first. Picture a pristine, corporate-engineered masterpiece of a hypercar that sold for $1.7 million. Now picture a rusty, beat-up 1998 Honda Civic with like 180,000 kilometers on the dash, the kind of car you could buy off an uncle for $800. What could these two totally different machines possibly have in common? Well, to figure that out, we've got to pull apart the stories of how they actually came to be. And let's start with the big money.
Section 1. The Currency of Capital. Bugatti's billion-dollar loss.
Our journey kicks off back in the early 2000s. Volkswagen was diving headfirst into what might be the ultimate corporate ego project, an endeavor that would totally redefine the limits of engineering and honestly test the absolute boundaries of financial logic. And the crazy part, it didn't start in some state-of-the-art lab. It reportedly started on a train. Volkswagen's boss, Ferdinand Piëch, literally sketched out these impossible demands on a napkin. I mean, listen to this: 1,001 horsepower, a top speed of 253 miles per hour, and a 0 to 60 time in under 3 seconds. Oh, and the kicker, it had to be quiet and comfortable enough to drive to the opera in a tailored suit. Naturally, his engineers told them, hey, this is impossible. Brutal speed and quiet comfort inherently fight each other in physics. But Piëch, he just completely ignored them.
To actually make this happen, Bugatti's engineers had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars solving problems that literally no one had ever solved before. They came up with the completely unprecedented W16 engine, which, if you think about it, is essentially just two massive V8 engines glued together. And this monster generated so much heat that they had to strap 10 separate radiators to it just to keep the whole thing from melting itself into a puddle of very expensive, very fast metal.
And honestly, nothing illustrates the sheer absurdity of bending physics quite like this next fact. 15 minutes. That is exactly how long the custom-designed tires would last if you push the car to its top speed of over 250 miles per hour. Just 15 minutes. The thousands of dollars worth of rubber would completely wear out and disintegrate. It really shows you the ragged edge of reality they were dancing on.
But guys, here is where the math gets absolutely crazy. It cost roughly $6 million in manufacturing and baked-in research and development to build just one of these hand-built cars. But the final sale price? Only $1.7 million. Let that sink in. That means Bugatti purposefully swallowed a staggering financial loss of over $4 million on every single one of the 450 units they sold.
When you multiply those massive losses across the entire production run and factor in the whole program's cost, Volkswagen absorbed an estimated loss of over 1 billion euros. Over €1 billion! They basically set $1 billion on fire just to build and sell this mechanical masterpiece. So you gotta ask yourself, why on earth would a strictly profit-driven corporation ever do something like this?
Well, the answer lies in a concept called the halo effect. See, this wasn't some terrible business error. It was actually a brilliant marketing strategy, just disguised as engineering. Volkswagen owns an entire empire of brands: Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini. By building the undisputed fastest, most impossible production car on the planet, they cast this massive halo of prestige and engineering dominance over their whole lineup. Suddenly, people trust Audi engineering more. Even if you're just buying a standard, everyday Volkswagen Golf, you're still benefiting from the glow of a company that proved it can literally conquer physics.
And this brings us to an incredible plot twist. Bugatti spent that initial fortune to establish their legendary technology and reputation up front. But over the next 15 years, they cashed in. They followed up with the Chiron, selling for around $3 million with way better margins. And then they dropped ultra-limited models like the Divo and Centodieci, selling for $8 to $9 million. So for a decade and a half, they reaped the rewards of highly profitable hypercars using the core engineering they'd already paid for with the original Veyron program.
Okay, Section 2, the Currency of Respect. Let's dive into the world of underground racing.
All right, we're taking a hard pivot now. We're stepping way away from the billions of dollars, the pristine boardrooms, and the corporate halos, and we're entering the gritty, hyper-personal world of grassroots street culture. Imagine you're 15 years old. You're the car kid, obsessively watching 2 a.m. highway pool videos on the internet. By 17, you hit level 2. You finally own your first car. Yeah, that busted $800 Honda Civic we talked about earlier. You're out there in the freezing rain, jumping dead batteries, dealing with busted knuckles and zip ties, throwing on cheap lowering springs and a $60 cold air intake just to make it feel like yours. And then, by 18, you're the parking lot driver. You're showing up every single Friday night, just quietly observing the unspoken hierarchy of the local scene. And you quickly learn that out here, money alone buys absolutely zero respect.
Then comes your first real race, out on some empty industrial road, and you get completely crushed by a built hatchback. But afterward, you get this clinical, unsparing breakdown from an older driver named Marcus. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He tells you straight up, your launch was wrong, you shifted early, and you left time on the table before power even mattered. He doesn't coddle you at all. He teaches you that in this world, skill and consistency are literally everything. It's a massive turning point where you realize, okay, I have to actually build myself up as a driver, not just bolt shiny parts to my car.
From there, you just keep showing up. You keep quietly improving. You survive your first police scatter as a midnight racer, hiding behind some warehouse with your heart absolutely pounding. And because you prove you can be trusted, you hit level 5, you get absorbed into a tight-knit crew, alongside drivers like Ren with his overpowered Civic, and Yuki with her precision cornering MX-5. By the time you're 23, you graduate to the really serious stuff. You're a highway racer now, pushing a newly rebuilt turbo engine on 2 a.m. elevated roads, learning the hard way that the people who last out here are the ones who know exactly which risks are actually worth taking.
But here is where the entire culture kind of redefines itself. You think you're all there just for the racing, but the crew becomes something else entirely. I mean, when Ren's transmission completely fails on a random Sunday morning, you drive 40 minutes out of the city just to help him get his car home. When Yuki's brother gets into trouble and she disappears for 2 weeks, nobody interrogates her when she gets back, you just make space for her. You start to realize that the crew stays together for profound, deeply personal reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with mechanics.
As the years pass, the weight of the whole scene really starts to shift. At 25, you're the known driver. Your reputation precedes you. But you also start seeing the very real, dark costs of this life when a driver you know crashes badly on a mountain road. By 27, Marcus has moved on, and suddenly, you're stepping up as the crew leader. You're the one managing the agonizing aftermath when a young driver clips a barrier. You become the mentor to a new kid named Kai, passing down the exact same harsh but necessary wisdom you once received. And finally, at 34, you hit level 9. You're the retired racer. The late-night risks, they're over. Your car just sits quietly under a cover in the garage.
But then, one night, you wander back to that exact same parking lot, just to watch from the outside. And you see this new, wide-eyed 16-year-old kid staring at a loud 350Z. He wants it so badly, but he doesn't yet know what it's going to cost him. And in that moment, you realize that some things just don't need to be said. They just need to be understood. You're silently passing the torch. You don't even say a word to the kid, but you understand exactly the incredible, crazy journey he's about to begin.
Section 3. Two currencies, corporate versus underground.
And this is where our entire journey really comes together. Whether you're a billionaire CEO risking billions of euros and your entire corporate reputation to prove the impossible to the world, or you're a 20-something kid risking your legal freedom and physical safety on a 2 a.m. highway pole just to earn the respect of your crew, this stark juxtaposition reveals something amazing. They actually share the exact same heart. The absolute core of this whole thing is a shared engine of motivation. See, neither side was ever doing this for a logical return on investment. Volkswagen definitely wasn't looking at a balanced spreadsheet when they greenlit the Veyron. And that 17-year-old fixing his $800 Civic in the freezing rain, he wasn't looking at a spreadsheet either. They were both driven by this completely irrational, deeply profound passion to bend the limits of what is possible and to cement a legacy that will outlast them. So I want to leave you with this final thought to really chew on. We've seen throughout this explainer that true passion rarely makes any sense on a piece of paper. The most memorable things we do as humans completely defy logic. So, whether your own personal ambitions require $1 billion in capital or just $800 in a quiet parking lot, what are you willing to risk to build your own legacy?